Hey everybody, I'm Matt. Hope things are going awesome in your world. Thanks for hanging out with me on my YouTube channel, where from time to time I like to go and visit churches that are different from my own, churches from a different part of the Christian family tree, where they do things a little bit differently, where they read the Bible and the history of the church a little bit differently than I do. What I like to do with these visits is go and see how Christians different from me, coming from a different context than me, come at it. If anything, I find these visits to these different churches to be very encouraging because it makes it feel like the whole of the viability of the Christian exercise isn't contingent on one narrow little expression that I happen to be a part of or that makes sense. And if that should ever wobble socially, the whole thing might be fake and maybe there's no God. To me, I find it hugely reassuring to see how diverse the family of faith is while still operating inside the boundaries of historic Christian orthodoxy. So literally every church that I've gone and visited has been an encouragement to me, has been formative for me in my own faith, in agreement and disagreement. And in particular, I like to see the buildings and the worship style that each of these different traditions produce. It's cool to see what flows, what physically flows out of what's happening here and here on the read on this. But I'm also really intrigued to see, what does it look like when somebody practices this for a lifetime or preaches this for a lifetime? What does conservative Anglicanism do to a guy over the course of 30 or 40 years? What does Pentecostalism do to a person over 30 or 40 years? What does conservative Baptist tradition engender in a person? What kind of character traits does this draw out? What fruits of the Spirit does this accentuate over the course of a lifetime of being deeply enmeshed with it? Or in the case of the video that we're going to do today together, what does being a Carmelite monk do to a person over the course of a lifetime? How does that cultivate and craft the soul? What fruits of the Spirit does that accentuate? And so in my last video, I went to St. Joseph Carmelite Monastery in Bunnell, Florida. Not sure I'm saying that name right. Apologies to all the residents of that good community if I got it wrong. In the last video, we got a great look at this local community church or parish, I guess they say, where people from the town, they come to church there on the monastery grounds, I guess. I didn't know that was a thing. It was great. I got a good sense of it. I got a great sense of what the Carmelite thing is and where it came from. But the thing that I was really curious about with this visit was, what do the monastery grounds look like? What do you do there? I remember from school this idea that one of the main concepts of the monastic cycle of life and the monastic disciplines is ora et labora, this idea of prayer and work and prayer. And I guess I can kind of picture that in the Middle Ages because maybe it was boring back then and you just do boring things. But what does it look like now to do work and prayer as a daily cycle and rhythm, a spiritual discipline 24/7? What does that produce? Well, in this video, we're going to get an answer to that, or at least we're going to get the Carmelite answer in this particular monastery. And I'm not even going to try to describe it because I think it's unique and I think it's beautiful. And I think Father Artur is going to do a way better job than me anyway. So I've already talked too much. There's going to be another video after this where I'm going to process what we've seen together in the last video and in this video. But for now, let's go check out the grounds of St. Joseph Carmelite Monastery in Bunnell, Florida with Father Artur.
So I know that you are making a lot of movies on YouTube. Is this your first golf car ride?
Yes, I've never been in a golf cart in one of my videos. I wouldn't have guessed that was going to happen at a mendicant monastery, though.
They're cheap, so. Actually, we got them. We got them from someone. Somebody donated them.
Okay, so as a mendicant, your name isn't on the title then?
No.
Okay. Okay, I understand. So what am I looking at here? To the left, this is...
That building on the left is the monastery where we live, the monks. There's 3 of us. Okay. At the moment, one brother is in his cell, Father Chris is on his vacation, and I'm here.
What you call the place where you live a cell?
A room, in terminology of the religious life, is cell. Well, it comes from the Latin word cellum, which is heaven, or cellare, which in Latin is to hide something, that you have a hidden life, or you live in a cell because this is your heaven on earth.
So, I mean, you're just right next door to the church, so much of your life happens between these two buildings. Then.
It's walk from that door to the chapel is the way which I probably do thousands and thousands of times over my years in this place.
Okay. So then back this way is where more of the work happens?
That's a garden, but it's kind of special garden.
Can we see it?
Of course.
All right. This is already beautiful.
On the left, we've got 10 commandments in 10 different languages. You've got Spanish, Portuguese, even Korean.
Would it be okay if we got out for a second? And
Sure.
look at this? What does the first commandment sound like in Polish?
Nie będziesz miał bogów cudzych przede mną.
That sounded very natural for you.
Polish is my first language always.
What am I to, I mean, obviously, I'm to glean from this that these are the 10 commandments. But why have them in all these different languages? What's the point of that?
Father Joseph, who is a founder of that monastery, when he lived, he decided the 10 commandments have to be 10 different languages. So we've got founders for each of those stations, especially Korean is very original. Nobody can read that, except Koreans probably. But it shows that that place is for everybody. Spanish and English, practically everybody here in Florida knows those languages. Mm-hmm. Catholic Church means universal, so that's why different languages.
Yeah, as I walk around and look at these, it feels like it's a nod again to that idea that we get from the covenant God made with Abraham, that this was always meant to be for everyone.
Yes.
This is always meant to go to the ends of the earth and to every tongue, tribe, and nation. And
yeah, but the message of Christianity is universal, of course. It reaches all the people, all culture, and all time.
I should probably get better at Hebrew so I can read it the real way.
On the right, we start Stations of the Cross. That's the first station, Jesus condemned to death, and we'll go all the way to the moment when he is dead, he is in the tomb, and when he raises from the dead.
So as you walk through this loop in the garden, it's kind of like walking around a sanctuary, except it's outside?
It's a Via Dolorosa, so to speak. That means the way which Christ did to the Calvary. We've got everything. From being condemned to death, even earlier because there is a statue, we missed it a little bit, when Christ was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. Mm-hmm. And we are going after him, all the steps he made to the crucifixion, to be laying in the tomb, and to the statue of the resurrection.
Yeah, should we walk or should we ride?
I think riding is better.
Okay. Obviously, I've seen a lot of Stations of the Cross walks before, but I've never seen a conclusion quite like this where I feel so physically immersed in the location and the physicality of it. I'm sure that's on purpose. What is this space with the built-up hill of Calvary and the tomb? What is that supposed to evoke in me?
You don't have to go to the Holy Land.
Yeah, it's a long trip.
It's a long trip. But no, the idea is, from the whole thing, to experience what Christ experienced on his way to Calvary. And next, after his death, putting him in the tomb and resurrection. So basically, you are participating fully in the passion, death, and resurrection of the Lord. That's the idea of this place here.
And for people who might be sitting in on our conversation for whom all of this is fairly new, why does it matter? What does it do? What does it mean that Jesus died on the cross, was buried, and rose again in Christian thought and Christian theology?
And that means everything. Christianity is a religion of life. We are here, we experience suffering, disappointments. Eventually, each single one of us has to experience death, but death is not the end. That's why Christ came, and the ultimate goal of Christianity, of a Christian, being a Christian, is not to die, but to rise from the dead. And the idea of this place, of that way of the cross, is just to experience life of a Christian.
I did have a question about this particular sculpture. I feel like I've been seeing this depiction of Jesus in Catholic art and bumper stickers for the last few years? Is this like a global thing or some special depiction that means something unique?
Yeah. We have to start with her. It's Saint Sister Faustina Kowalska, a Polish nun who had a vision of Christ in 30s of the last century, before World War II. This picture is called the picture of the merciful Jesus, or Divine Mercy, and it's all over the world now, Catholic world.
What am I to glean from it? What's different about this from other depictions of Jesus?
Those two rays, it symbolizes that Christ suffered for us. It's red, white, resurrection, His grace for all of us. It's a reminder. God, of course, has always been merciful, but it seems that like nowadays, in the 21st century, in 20th century, people forgot about it. God sent that message to Sister Faustina to remind the world that His mercy is waiting for all the sinners, and God wants all the sinners to convert and turn to Him.
It just sounds like Bible, but
it is like Bible, but I think God uses pictures and persons as a reminder.
Yeah, and it's a reminder to me that not everyone is wired just like me in my tradition, where it's just a tremendous amount of Bible. I mean, that tends to be the focus and the emphasis of all of these things with image. We just don't lean into that as much in my tradition.
True. We have to remember that in the beginning of Christianity, a lot of people couldn't read. That's why they were painting pictures.
Sure.
Just for them to understand the Bible. So God comes to us as a picture because God has no body, but we've got eyes created by God. We need to see things. We need to see pictures. Somebody said that one good picture is worthy of $1 million, something like that. I don't remember exactly the expression. Yeah. So if somebody sees God who opens His heart with two rays of grace and sacrifice, that can be helpful to somebody.
This is interesting. This is not part of the Stations of the Cross, obviously. This is a statement of the Beatitudes. Why do we have the Beatitudes here?
Beatitudes, it is just the beginning of the Sermon in the Mountain. Christ was saying who is really blessed. This is the reminder for the contemporary person who in the eyes of God is really blessed. Because it seems that nowadays people are thinking that blessing comes with a lot of money, a lot of success, a lot of a fantastic, great career, and so forth. And Christ says, well, no. It is not just like that. It is good to have a good career. It is good to make a good money. I have absolutely nothing against it. But because Christ came to everybody, especially to those who are unprivileged, to the poor, to the sick, to the forgotten, and to the abandoned, and so forth. This is what is His message from His most important sermon. That's why in the front of that picture, we've got a moment of meditation. Who in the eyes of God is really blessed?
Well, it seems like it's really appropriate too in a mendicant monastery. Mm-hmm. I mean, because if I'm hearing you right, I mean that's part of the values of the whole order is to lean even harder than maybe other Christians would into the upside downness of the values of the kingdom, and even to intentionally go so far as to reject some of those values of the world to focus on the values of the kingdom. Is that a fair statement?
True, but it's not only for us mendicants, but I think this is for all the Christians. In those words is hidden the mystery of man's happiness on earth. Being blessed by God means more than anything else.
So does the happiness come from being persecuted, being insulted, being hungry and thirsty, or does the blessing come from orienting differently to the values of God?
Yeah, that's the second part.
Okay.
Because God doesn't want anybody to persecute it, anybody to be hungry or something like that. But God wants in the world peacemakers, but God wants bless those who are unprivileged. Basically, 8 Beatitudes are talking that God cannot forget about anybody. Those words are bringing also hope for those who may be lost it.
Maybe it's just something about the environment. Maybe it's about the conversation we've been having and how long it's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like I have a little more space to think about it here, even with that camera right over there, which does add a little bit of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm not going to claim to understand at all, but maybe just a little better than I did when I drove up.
That's at least something.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I understand it. It's not that because I'm saying that I exactly live the way I'm saying, but I'm trying. I've got a long way to go. I consider myself to be the last fallen sinner in the world. And I need God's forgiveness and mercy every second in my life.
Well, I'm sensing how you're building in this space to think about it. Space that I clutter by going to my phone immediately anytime I'm waiting in line for 2 minutes. 2 minutes, that's enough time to scroll something on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as long as I got this thing, I don't have to think deeply about what's wrong with my soul or the big questions of justice or forgiveness or any of those things. And I see just a little bit, I see the attempt at decluttering that you're trying to nurture here, that you're trying to build here.
Yeah.
And it's effective. I mean, in this little dose that I've experienced.
I'm glad you noticed that. We are trying. Sometimes we are less successful, sometimes we are more successful.
Sure. Well, it's easier too when the weather is perfect and everything is beautiful. Can we look at this resurrection section?
Of course, sure.
I'm the resurrection and the life. And that looks like a tombstone back there. I'm guessing it wasn't an accident that you put those right next to each other?
No, that was my idea, actually. And Father Joseph, who passed away in 2021, like I said, he's the founder of that monastery. And when we were thinking about putting a cemetery for us, it had to be right after the statue of the resurrection.
Why?
Because that's what we die for, to rise from the dead. It's a symbolism. This is not the very end of our life. This is just a moment when your body is waiting for the resurrection. So it makes perfect sense to put the cemetery right behind the statue of the risen Lord.
How many are buried here?
One. Not
And
many.
that's Father Joseph?
It's Father Joseph. He was 87 when he passed away. He's like a father to me. I spent with him in this place 18 years. From the very beginning, since I came. He was here and I was with him to the very last breath. We are all will buried here, probably.
So this is the place where the faith becomes sight. And what's represented here and here.
Well, that's life meets with death and life wins. Like Latin saying, memento mori, remember you shall die. But at the same time, remember you shall rise from the dead also.
Thank you for showing me this.
Okay.
So as we're coming up here, you're talking about the rosary, and you were trying to explain to me how this corresponds to what's going on here. Can you walk me through how that works?
Yeah. The idea of saying the rosary is just embrace the whole life of Jesus. So the gospel begins with Annunciation. When Archangel Gabriel comes to Mary, pregnant Mary goes to visit her cousin Elizabeth, birth of Jesus when he was born, presentation in the temple, and finding Jesus when he was lost.
Okay.
So that's the first 5 joyful mysteries.
And then from here you would go this direction?
Yes.
What is this next batch of stations collectively called?
Luminous mysteries. That means they are showing what Jesus did with his lifetime. It starts with the baptism of Christ in the Jordan, miracle of Cana of Galilee, teaching the people, transfiguration, on the Mount of Transfiguration, and institution of the Eucharist.
The high points of his
basically
public ministry.
Time when he was teaching.
Okay. Okay. And then there's another section. This next collection, what's the grouping here?
Those are sorrowful mysteries, which basically describe the Passion of Christ. So we meet first Christ when he's praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. Then he is scourged, when he is crowned with the thorns, when he walks to the Calvary, and eventually he is crucified.
So it's pretty easy for me to do the math then on what the last section must be. It's got to be the resurrection.
Correct.
But it seems like there's not that much that happens after the resurrection that's in the Bible. What are the stations there?
But he was appearing to the disciples, there is a lot of mysteries what really happened after the resurrection. He was for 40 days on earth. We don't know exactly what he was doing. It's a mystery. But the last section of the mysteries starts with the resurrection, then ascension into heaven, Pentecost, the sentence of the Holy Spirit, Assumption of Our Lady with the body and soul, that's Catholic tradition, and crowning Our Lady in heaven as a Queen of heaven and earth. That's how we believe.
The coronation, Catholics would look at the woman in Revelation and say that's Mary, and that's where that comes from?
Yeah, but we have to remember that Christ was king. So if Christ was king, we assume that Our Lady was a queen who gave birth to the king.
Okay. What do you pray as you move through each of these stations? Is there a specific reflection that you're doing with each of these things?
You get a reflection if you are over there by the station of the resurrection. When you are saying the rosary, your mind should be set on the mystery of the resurrection of Christ. And at each single station, you've got description, what they symbolize, what the station is all about, and you focus saying the rosary on that mystery.
And it takes you an hour if you're praying fast to get through this?
It takes a while. I don't count time when I'm doing that. But usually you've got the right to do fifth at one time. You don't have to do every day the whole thing.
So if someone doesn't understand the Bible, or maybe they're not great at reading, but they did this for their whole life, they would be very connected to the basic big points of the gospel and the life of Christ.
Of course, because that is just to help people to follow Christ. Yeah? If you were going over there to the first joyful station, you start with the beginning of the life of Christ and you are ending in heaven. So it's all the stages of your life. At a certain point you were conceived in the womb of your mother, probably your mom told that she's pregnant to whoever you were born. In this life you have ups and downs, joyful moments, sorrowful moments, maybe tragical moments. All those things are included in the life of Christ. So that's why it's just that garden is to help people follow Christ and understand their life better.
So big picture, why is all this here? Why is there a Carmelite order? What's the point of the whole thing?
I think we have to get to the beginning of our conversation today. We are dedicated, especially to prayer, meditation, contemplation, the mystery of God. That garden, that place, has been designed not only for us Carmelites, for everybody who could come to find peace, and maybe God will touch his or her heart if that person is here. That's the purpose of our monastery. We're just very particular in being kind of hidden and private, but at the same time everybody is allowed to come. We do not advertise that much because that's not our nature, so to speak. But those who are called to find that place, like yourself, they will find us.
What would be missing if there was no Carmelite order? What is the unique thing that you bring to the kingdom, to the church, as an order that it would be a pity to lose if you weren't around?
Carmelite spirituality, John of the Cross, Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint Teresa of Lisieux, three doctors of the church. Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, that means Edith Stein, a martyr who was killed in Auschwitz. A lot of spiritual books, a lot of beautiful tradition, because Carmel means the garden of the Lord, caramel. And that's Christ, the church would be kind of poorer without that garden, so to speak. You have to remember also one thing, that in the beginning God put the first couple in the garden. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are maybe not paradise yet, but we will at last, Carmel would try to resemble the paradise.
Yeah. Well, I know that you get one day off a week. And you let me show up and dominate your entire day with these conversations, but it means a lot. I've never taken a look this closely at the monastic life, at a monastery. I've never stayed and talked and engaged and been quiet long enough to get a sense of why and what it does. And I wouldn't claim that I understand it now, but I would claim that I understand it a little bit better than I did before we spent time together today.
Well, for me, it's completely new experience. I never allowed anybody to film me. That's the first time of my life when somebody is allowed to film my face, basically. I don't have any social media. I don't do all those things. And it was difficult for me a little bit. But I don't even know why, when I had a telephone from you, that I said, yes, you can come. I cannot understand it. Like I'm saying, that's for the first time in my life, maybe the last time, who knows.
Well, I'm grateful personally. And this is, I wanted to ask questions, I wanted to learn about things, but I had a sense that this was more the kind of environment where you need to feel what it is.
Probably.
That you have to give yourself the space to understand it.
You have to come here, because what we're talking about, that the pictures on our website did not show what it really is and how much it is.
Yes.
So,
yeah, and how much it takes to make it happen.
Yeah. It just it takes a while to see everything and get some explanations maybe about things.
Yeah. Father, thank you for letting us come. Thank you for letting me take up this time, and thank you for sharing this with me.
Okay, God bless you, my friend.
You as well. Look, I've got a ton of thoughts about what we just saw, but I don't want to clutter up the end of this video with those. So we'll do another video where I'll kind of game out what I take from this, what I make of it, what the experience was like behind the scenes a little bit more. That'll probably be the next video on this channel. In the meantime, a couple quick things to say. One, huge thanks to everybody there at St. Joseph Monastery in Bunnell, Florida. It's just a huge risk anytime you let somebody come in from the outside who is not a part of the same tradition as you and take your whole day off to just show them around. Who knows what will happen? And I'm so grateful for the trust and the time and the enormous hospitality and kindness that I was shown, not just on camera, but off camera as well. It was a wonderful experience for me, too. Thank you to Father Artur, who clearly does not want to be doing this. He doesn't want a camera pointed at him. That's not why he's doing it. He's not trying to get clicks. He's not playing some internet game. He means the stuff that he says and was identical when the camera was on as to when the camera was off. I think he's doing it because he thinks it's all true. I mean, that whole journey that we took around that loop that tells this story, that has all the elements of the gospel, the good news, the message of Christ in it. He wanted you to see it. He wanted you to see the work and the energy that had gone into it from all the other people who'd contributed. But as much as anything, he wants you to get the story. That's why the thing is being maintained. He thinks there's life in that story, and I'm inclined to agree with him. So I hope that came through in what we were doing here. I'll game this out more in a future video. Thank you so much for watching this. And if you like stuff like this, there's a whole bunch of other videos like this on this channel. They're all in a playlist. I think it's called the Church Unity Project playlist. I'm pretty sure that's what I have it called right now. I'll link it down below if you want to look at some more of these as well. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for going on this tour with me, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. All right.